Hello everyone, myself Randhir Gautam, and today I'm going to teach you about the very important thinker in sociology, Karl Mannheim. Karl Mannheim is known as the founder father of sociology of knowledge. Karl Mannheim particularly continues to fascinate me because he demonstrates the passion of the true sociologist who continually teaches us to see society and sociological problem deeply. Let us talk about some of his details of his biography. Karl Mannheim was born on 27th March 1893 in Budapest, in Hungary. His father, Gottlieb Mannheim, was a textile industrialist, and his mother, Rose Reilenberg, was a very intelligent woman. Uh, his mother uh, was with a broad interest of knowledge. She took pains with the cultural and intellectual development of her child. Later, on 22 March 1921, Karl Mannheim married Juliska Lang. This is the picture. Karl Mannheim is along with his wife. Uh, as far as intellectual development of Mannheim is concerned, he interested in philosophy, particularly of the thought of Hegel and George Lukács. He translated two texts of Hegel in German to Hungarian. Karl Mannheim completed his graduation from University of Budapest in philosophy. He was an excellent student. He went to Berlin for further studies. On January 1926, Mannheim became an extraordinary lecturer in sociology at University of Heidelberg, Germany, where he submitted a project, The Old Conservatism, which recently was published completely as conservatism. If you want to understand the genesis of conservatism, you can study this book that is available in market, even in online. uh, some of the important contributions in sociology. Karl Mannheim, while he was teaching in uh, Budapest, he titled a project called Genesis of Thought. So, the sociology of knowledge was his first contribution. He became famous with the advent of this ideology and utopia. Then he wrote Diagnosis of Our Time, wartime essays on sociology, and essays on sociology of culture. So these are the important contribution of Karl Mannheim in the field of sociological theories. If you want to understand thinkers' genesis of thought, we have to understand like the context in which his thought, pattern emerges. So there is no doubt that his contemptuous uh, attitude towards ideology was somewhat influenced by the fact that Nazi ideology was rapidly developing in Germany at that time. So in 1930, Mannheim was forced to immigrate to England. He was not the only thinker. Along with him, many Frankfurt schools thinkers had to immigrate to US or England um, because of the fascism, right? Hitler regime. So that was the uh, context of that time. Let's talk about his first and very fundamental contribution to sociology, that is the sociology of knowledge. Karl Mannheim is the central figure in the field of sociology of knowledge. Sociology of knowledge is the study of ideas as functions of social involvements. you know in sociology we have various subfields like sociology of education, sociology of gender, sociology of demography, so and so forth, right? So in sociology of knowledge we focus on knowledge and knowing as socially grounded processes, and how therefore knowledge is understood, and how therefore knowledge is understood to be a social production, right? So according to Karl Mannheim, sociology of knowledge uh, identifies with theory of cognition uh, or social teaching, right? So he talks about social location, like positionality, right? What is positionality? Right. See, our knowledge is shaped by our social location, or say social context in society, in terms of gender, caste, sexuality, religion, culture, nationality, so and so forth. Right. So these are important thing if one tries to understand one's pattern of thought. Right. So according to Karl Mannheim, there are four important variables that determine the basic category of sociology of knowledge. First is the positionality of individual, right? Such as community, revolution, or class, which we attempt to interpret it when we respond to it, right? So this is the positionality. So, second is the individual who is particularly involved in the situation and accordingly form his image of it, right? It such involvements may include occupational aim, political aspirations, right? Somebody is affiliated towards the ideology of feminism, that is his or her political aspiration, right? Even like kinship ties, economic rivalries, right? So in short, a multitude of overlapping group attachment, right? So if you want to understand genesis of thought or sociology of knowledge, you have to look these variables. The third is the imagery which individuals or group adopt, right? We have imaginary, right? Like nationality. Nationality means nation is also a imagined community. So we have imaginary of say India, like Bharat Mata, and like like this. Uh, Finally, the audience to which the image is conveyed, including its peculiar understanding, symbol to which it attaches meaning, and a vocabulary to which it responds. Like we say Jai Hind to respond to our someone's nationality, right? So these are the important variables we have to look if one if we try to understand the sociology of knowledge, right? uh, he further studies uh, like how sociology can study society. So he countered the empirical sociology, or say positivist science, that was the very dominant uh, sociological conceptual framework of that time. So Mannheim said, uh, like there was nothing absolute, and they simply reflected a certain viewpoint by the social being and their position. He said, like, there is no truth apart from consensus, and there is no value apart from interest, right? So nothing is absolute truth, right? So social theories were an expression of a specific point of view, right? He uh, he further explained, like, uh, right, how we can study society. First we have to free from our social positionality. For Karl Mannheim, uh, objectivity by virtue of its partial and class biased is always subjective, uh, and always distorted genuine knowledge of reality. So he talked about free intelligentsia. What is free intelligentsia? Somewhat we can understand free intelligentsia with, like, free thinker, right? And he defined intelligentsia as a group whose special task it is to provide an interpretation of the world, right? So an intellectual was not necessarily a person of education or culture, but one who could detach him or her uh, for their conditioning social background and free float among the different social and historical perspective available to their society, right? So sociology of knowledge, at the one hand, it is a theory of social cognition, and at the another hand it is a theories of it is a theory of social science, right? Karl Mannheim further attempt to distinguish rationality from relativism. So, what is relativism? Relativism was the recognition that all thought was linked to the concrete historical situation of the thinker, and that it had no objective and universal understanding. What is relationalism? Like relativism, acknowledged the contextual location of thought, and the absence of absolute truth in social and historical matters. Even Marxism itself, that ostensible anti ideology, was exposed by Mannheim as an ideology, right? So, so the important constitutive element of sociology of knowledge is idea. According to Mannheim, an idea is studies, right, as an idea when one interprets uh, from the inside, and when one considers its logical structure. An idea is perceived ideologically when one studies it from the outside, right? So right now we have a, a, a good discussion on, say, epic and the etic methodology. So Karl Mannheim was the first who discussed this thing in detail in his sociology of knowledge. right? So if you understand the genesis of sociology of ideology, uh, Karl Mannheim was skeptical about the historical ontologies of Karl Mannheim, of Karl Marx, right? Uh, so Karl Mannheim experiments with dialectics, right? So before Karl Mannheim, we have approach to study ideology like Selter's deterministic approach, Dilthey idealistic approach, Nietzsche psychological approach, Weberian approach, Marxian view, and so forth. But Karl Mannheim's perspective is different. How? This is the important word, ideology and utopia, right? The history of social cognition is in a certain degree a chain of mistakes and errors. He criticized Marxian interpretation of ideology, right? Marxism, if you read the work of Lenin, uh, he said like ideology is false consciousness, right? Means distorted thinking. But if you read the Lenin, who changed the very conception of Mars, like ideology is a tool of salvation, right? So Karl Mannheim criticized German idealism because of its overestimation of the role of ideas in human affairs and the history of logical continuum of thought, right? So for Mannheim, ideology had both social and psychological manifestations. So within ideology, he categorized two type of ideology. That is, one is particular ideology, one is general ideology. So what is particular ideology? Like where a social group regarded certain ideas as notions of its opponents as distorting reality. So particular ideology is subjective and psychological is in nature. Contrary to this, general ideology, that is total ideology, it is used to characterize the structure of the mind of social group in its total or even the whole era or being distorted. So uh, German, so general ideology is social and a spiritual life of an epoch, right? Epoch. Let's discuss some of the brief detail of what is ideology and what is utopia. Ideologies corresponded to the interest of ruling social groups which sought to perceive the status quo, right? So they don't accept social changes, right? Consequently, has a conservative character. What is utopia? Utopia is termed as social theories of opposition or say oppressed, which were revolutionary and directed to distorting the status quo. So to change uh, hands of prevailing order. Both ideology and utopia are transcendent and unreal. Ideology is like liberal democratic bourgeois, socialist communist, and fascist. These are ideology. What is utopia? Like chileistic, liberal humanitarianism, conservatism, or socialist communist. Right. So this is the uh, utopia, right? So in further lecture we are going to discuss some of the brief in introduction of the relationship between ideology and belief, and then we'll discuss about um, in ideology and utopia in detail, right? See, like in social theory we have basically two perspective. One is conservatism and one is radical political philosophies. Like, uh, just think about a conception called religion, how Durkheim views religion, and contrary to this, how Marx views religion. Marx see religion as opium of the masses, where Durkheim's notion of religion uh, as a representation of society, right? So Durkheim presented a functionalist, socialist view of religion, Marx as a vulgar economist, for whom culture is mere reflex of superstructure of all determining, economic base. So this is the very important work of Karl Mannheim, Ideology and Utopia. It has to be discussed in detail. So in next lecture, I am going to discuss in detail. Thank you so much.